Talking baseball here with the Pete Alonso. Take it up with Steve Cohen specifically. Steve Cohen, the owner of the New York Mets. They were talking, I think it was like a fireside chat type of ordeal. And obviously, Pete Alonso is not signed yet. And people were saying it could be the Blue Jays or why not the Mets? And it looks like the logical place was the Mets. And there was an offer out there by the Mets that they wanted an answer for. And I guess they weren't able to come to terms yet. But I want you to play the clip, Brad, here in a moment. If we can re-upload it, or Zach, if you can put it up. Steve Cohen was kind of the conversation about Pete Alonso got brought back up. And Steve Cohen made it very clear that he thought this was actually a tougher ordeal than signing Juan Soto. So let's play that clip for you guys.
All right. All right, so guys, let's hold that for the end, okay? We've made a significant offer to Pete, what Davis says is correct. He's entitled to go out and explore his market, and that's what he's doing. Personally, this has been an exhausting conversation and negotiation. I mean, Soto was tough. This is worse. Okay? and a lot of it is, we've made a significant. I don't like the structures that are being presented back to us. I think it's highly asymmetric against us, and I feel strongly about it. And so, I will never say no. There's always the possibility. But the reality is, we're moving forward, and we continue to bring in players. As we continue to bring in players, the reality is, it becomes harder to fit Pete into what is a very expensive, group of players that we already have, and that's where we are. And I'm being brutally honest. I don't like the negotiations. I don't like what's been presented to us. Listen, maybe that changes, and certainly, I'll always stay flexible. If it stays this way, I think we're going to have to get used to the fact that, we may have to go forward and with the existing players that we have.
So it went from everyone chanting for Pete, and then Steve just being like, "Yeah, I offered him a pretty good deal, and this is exhausting. I'm over it."
I'm curious as to what the structure that he doesn't like is all about.
Especially since they spent about $1 billion
on Juan Soto.
Ryan, just from
on everybody.
From a player's perspective, somebody who's been inside the game, how does Pete feel about that? Like, this seems like such a bold, like, if I'm the Blue Jays, I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Like, you just publicly insulted him saying, hey, we don't like this. This is exhausting. I'm not having fun. And then to end it with, hey, if nothing changes, we are perfectly capable and okay with moving on without him. That's just, if I'm Pete Alonso, I'm like, well, okay. If you think you're okay without me, why don't I go to Toronto? Right. Why don't I see what else is out there?
Well, it's because he doesn't want to go somewhere else. Like, that's in my mind. Pete wants to be in New York. He just wants them to pay up. Mm-hmm. And he's in a position right now, Zach, where it's a good conversation. First off, I'll answer your question. Yeah, when you're the owner of the team calls out a player, your first reaction is that you're pissed off. I mean, I think that's not even to be a player. I think anybody, if you heard your boss and say something publicly, you're probably not happy. You're probably thinking some thoughts you might not want to say out loud. Or if you are, you might say it to your close family and friends and let things simmer down. So Pete Alonso's got to decide here. Is he like, hey, I'm burning this bridge, we're done? Because Steve Cohen definitely is fine with doing that right now. He's saying, I've reached my end of the rope with you in this conversation, and we have a really good team with or without you. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know you're going, Kevin. Sorry.
No. I mean, I was just going to say that with this whole situation, I mean, the Mets, I agree, they're going to have a good team with or without Pete Alonso, but it sends an interesting message. And I think that players pay attention to this stuff, not just Pete Alonso, but like how this whole situation is going down. And I feel like when you talk about maybe, teams are going to sign with the Mets. I don't think this is going to impact their ability, but in terms of like a culture perspective, like Pete's been there for feels like ever now. And it's like, if you just kind of toss a guy like that to the curb, essentially, and look, it's a two-way negotiation. Pete has his number, the Mets have their number, but I agree with Zach. If there's an opposing team that's in these sweepstakes, I'm just like, hey, we're not going to treat you like this. Come on over here. Like this is a big negotiation card for a lot of these teams.
And I want to finish with that part. I am shocked. I shouldn't say I'm not shocked that Steve Cohen did this because he's proving that he's going to do what he wants to do.
Yep.
But when you do make this public, you are opening up a lot of criticism and you're opening up a whole different can of negotiation. And I'm telling you what, the whole Alonso camp, they're going to be pissed off about this. And if Pete Alonso does go somewhere else, he's going to mark down the calendar when he plays the Mets. And for a player that has given everything to the organization, that's where he's going to be the most upset. The first thing is he was upset that you're not giving him what he wants. You don't think you're valuing him for what he believes he brings to your team. Secondly, he's been with this organization. Now, we don't know if they're saying, hey, Pete's being too greedy. We can't sit here and say that. I don't know the details of what's been offered or what hasn't been. But you never like when any of the laundry gets aired out to the public. So that is the biggest part right there. But then the decision's going to have to be, Pete, do you want to take less and come back and be a part of the Mets? And can you move past this now? Can you move past this? If not, it's time to take your talents elsewhere, probably take a little bit less than what you want and go out and accomplish that. But only we know what Pete wants. And I think we're going to have to figure this out soon. Guys, spring training's in 2 weeks.
I was just about to say, Pete Alonso, I don't know what he's asking for. I would imagine it's probably more than this player that I'm about to mention to you. So here's Pete Alonso's stats last year and his career. Stats last year, batting average is 240, home runs 34, on base percentage 329, OPS is 788. Okay. This other player that I just mentioned, that I'm mystery player, has OPS of 814 last year, 44 home runs, batting average of 235. His career is 246. Pete Alonso's career is 249, and that player got a 3-year deal at $18 million a year in Toronto. That is none other than Anthony Santander. So my guess is Pete Alonso's asking for a lot more than what Anthony Santander got in Toronto. And if he is, then I would not be surprised as to why Steve Cohen is saying no deal.
It's the market. And that's a part. The initial thought is they wanted $30 million a year, 3 years, $90 million.
And so if Anthony Santander is taking that kind of deal,
he's taking 5 for 90.
And it's almost the stats on their careers are almost identical.
And the bigger part, if he goes to Toronto, that
also they're both 30 years old.
And I think Pete's a great power hitter. I think so. Same thing with Tony Taters. That would be a very interesting dynamic of Vlad Guerrero Jr.
Yeah.
Tony Taters, Pete Alonso. Offensively, Bo Bichette. But defensively, I don't know where it all fits. You're going to have to make Vlad Guerrero Jr. then all-time DH or Pete Alonso, whatever it is. But to your point, Brad, there it is. The market is setting it. And Steve Cohen has proved that he's not afraid to pay guys. He's not afraid to go out and get guys. But it seems like when he reaches his limit, he's not afraid to say no. And it looks like he's firm on that. I don't think they make a higher offer. So now ball's in Pete's court. But wherever it is, it's got to be decided soon. And quite frankly, with Pete to finish that conversation, he's going to help a team, but they're still trying to figure out the reason why he wants more is because the worry is how long are you going to get this success or, I guess, ability from Pete, because they're not expecting him, at least as a player, he's going to have to probably be less versatile moving forward.
Yeah.
And that ruins the value. It's the same thing with Santander when they were evaluating, but Tony's proven he's a solid outfielder. If he does slow down, you could move him to first. You can't put Pete in the outfield. So that's where you're looking at it there. So we'll see. We got 2 weeks left. He's a premier player that doesn't sign. The other premier player that I still can't believe is Alex Bregman. At that one, I can believe it, but that is the one player that I think that any team is waiting on. Now, you guys seeing these reports that the Astros or Jose Altuve, they're saying, would be willing to move to the outfield to make room for Bregman to come back, move Paredes over possibly,
That would be-
and then Brian Windhurst here, Ryan Presley, was their closer on their team at one point until Josh Hader came, just accepted a trade to the Cubs
to lose salary.
So is all this going to be so Alex Bregman goes back to Houston? And if he goes back to Houston, I still really like him. I think that this team is a contender in a wide open American League. He's the one guy that can tip the scales. I know Detroit, there's been a standstill. I know there was talks with him with the Mets at one point too.
Even the Red Sox.
And the Red Sox. I think if you're the Mets, I'm paying Bregman over I'm paying Alonso.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Holy hell, guys.
Steve Cohen also said he's not done with his lineup. He's not happy with the lineup. So
it's a good point.
Mets aren't done.
There. But if the Astros do bring back Bregman and they have Bregman, Altuve, and then you're looking at, you got Paredes,
Alvarez.
You have Alvarez still there. You have a really good pitching staff that still people aren't really talking about.
Yeah.
Houston's going to have the ability to win another division title. I like Texas. I do like Texas. I think Oak or Sacramento is better.
Whoever they are.
But the Houston Astros are once again going to be a team to be reckoned with if Alex Bregman goes back. And please do not talk to me about that batting average and putting the ball play is devalued. It matters. And when you have a guy like Bregman that can hit for some power and play a good defensive third base, and then also he's a tough out, and you line up. He immediately makes you a contending team.
Yep.
In my opinion, with the pieces. If he goes to Houston, Boston, Mets, whoever gets Alex Bregman, their chances to win significantly increases. That's all I got on that, guys. But that is one story I am still trying to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
I watched this guy when he was in high school. He was my same draft class. He was always more evolved, always really sound. Then goes to LSU. You saw what he was at LSU. And all he does is put together good season after good season, competitor, knows how to win. You can hate the Astros. And the funny thing is, a lot of people still like, I'm not forgiving the Astros or Bregman being on that team. I guarantee you that dude comes to your team, you're screaming from the rooftops. You're throwing cat birthday parties, Kevin.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You might be throwing 2 or 3.
Multiple.
It's a fiesta up in here then. If you sign Alex Bregman. But I'll say this, he ends up in the American League East, and you mentioned about teams getting better. Boston, to me, becomes the favorite in the AL East by far if Bregman goes. But if Houston retains him, don't sleep on that Houston Astros team. They are not going away if Alex Bregman comes back. So, guys, new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Ryan Ripken.